We do have a little news out of New Orleans. I guess this is actually out of Irvine, California. Ross Jackson just sharing this with us over at LouisianaSports.net. Trevor Penning, a foot injury. He's going to be out a couple of weeks, but nothing major. So it does appear as though the New Orleans Saints have dodged a little bit of a bullet there with Trevor Penning. On the flip side, Will Clapp. It was Nick Underhill who reported on Monday that it is a significant injury and is going to miss significant time. So that's very disappointing on the Will Clapp front because that Will's a guy who, and I would still imagine he'll go to PUP, I guess, depending on the severity here. I don't know that he goes to IR. We'll wait and see. But that's a guy who felt like a shoo-in to make the team as a guy that he was a veteran entering his 8th year in the NFL, 2 seasons in LA with Kellen Moore, knows the offense. Obviously, a reason Kellen Moore brought him back to New Orleans, and then just the versatility, the ability to play center and both guard spots made Will Clapp very versatile and valuable lineman. So they'll have to replace him there, but that does open the door for someone like Torricelli Simpkins, who replaced Will Clapp at center. Remember, he had never played center. He was not a center at South Carolina, but replaced Will Clapp at center, can play guard spots. You look at a guy like Shane Lemieux, who was on the team a year ago. They just re-signed earlier this month, now back with the team, vying for a job, a roster spot there. It's with Will Clapp, 5 offensive line spots are spoken for with your 5 starters that are all your high draft picks. With Kelvin Banks and Trevor Penning and Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz and Taliesin Fuanga. Those 5 are spoken for, and really what you're looking for is 2, maybe 3 other players. Generally, an interior player that can rotate and someone that can rotate at tackle. So who might have won that tackle job? Don't know. Dylan Radins was a pretty good bet considering he's a former second-round pick. He's a young veteran. He played guard with Tennessee, but he was playing right tackle for New Orleans on Sunday against the Chargers. And then Will Clapp. Those would have been the best bets, right, to earn a spot on the 53. With Will Clapp's injury, it opens things up. As for as for Trevor Penning, this one, because it seems like this is not as serious, that's fantastic news. Now, the disappointment is you would have loved for Trevor Penning to have had the opportunity to play a couple more preseason games at left guard, a new spot for him, but also next to Kelvin Banks. But more important than playing in preseason games is having him ready for week 1. And I'll say it again about Trevor Penning. He has the reputation of being injury prone, but that is not an earned reputation. He was injured in the final preseason game of his rookie year. But Trevor Penning has played in all 17 games each of the last 2 years. So he missed the bulk of his rookie season. But each of the last 2 years, he's played in every game. So he has been durable. He's not been very good. He was very bad at left tackle. And he was serviceable a year ago. He was better at right tackle than he was at left, which isn't hard. But now, by even his own admission, he's at a spot where he feels more comfortable and probably a more natural spot at guard. You'd love for him to get the rapport with Kelvin Banks, the rookie left tackle, and, of course, Penning playing a new position. But what's most important is make sure he's ready September the 7th against Arizona. Which brings us to the Pro Football Focus grades from Sunday's game against the Chargers. And if you break it down to offense and defense, I'll say it this way. What you really want to see are your starters and contributors at the top and guys that aren't going to make the team at the bottom. And that's kind of what you see here. Taliesin Fuanga was the highest rated offensive player, followed by Mason Tipton, Velus Jones, Cedric Wilson, Dante Pettis. Now, one I'm going to circle and go, I don't really get, is Dylan Radins, who's the 6th highest rated player offensively. Remember, it was Dylan Radins. He had 2 penalties. One was a procedure penalty. 2 penalties, 1 was accepted. And he's the guy who gave up the strip sack of Spencer Rattler. So the fact that he was that highly rated is a little concerning, and then you look and realize his grade was a 66. That ain't great. But Taliesin Fuanga tipped the scales with a 74. His pass block grade was a 77. His run block grade was a 72. If you go to the other end, your bottom 5 lowest rated offensive player was Jake Haener, then Easton Kilty, Jack Stoll, Marcus Yarns, Kyle Hergel. Those were your 5 lowest rated offensive players. And I don't really care because none of those guys are going to make the team. Now, Haener, maybe you cut him, keep him on the practice squad. We'll see what happens there. I don't really care. We all know what Jake Haener is at this point. But Easton Kilty, Jack Stoll, Marcus Yarns, Kyle Hergel, those guys aren't making the team. So, okay. What's interesting is the next lowest graded player was Tyler Shuck at a 46. But I will say this, and I know Haener's there at the bottom. I don't really care about PFF grades for quarterbacks because, let me explain. For me, I put a degree of value in PFF where we don't have statistical bearing to measure players. For example, PFF grading offensive linemen can be a valuable tool because there's no statistics to grade offensive linemen, and most everybody, when they watch the game, are watching the ball. We're not watching linemen. You only notice a lineman when they mess up, like I just talked about with Dylan Radness. He gave up a strip sack and had 2 penalties. We noticed him because of that. Did you notice anything else he did? I didn't. So with quarterbacks, we can see there's touchdowns, there's completion percentage, there's passer rating, there's rushing yardage, there's did you make good decisions? Like Tyler Shuck getting his first series in the 2-minute drill and leading the Saints to points, that was really encouraging. That was really good. The pick 6 was awful. Hated to see that. But hopefully that's something that he learns from. So I'm not quite as concerned. I will tell you, seeing Cesar Ruiz with a grade of 51, that's not good. His pass block grade was a 34. His run block grade was a 56. That's a starter going against dudes from the Chargers who aren't going to make their team. And his grade was a 51. That's awful. Cam Akers, graded out at a 52. Not great. Just as a for instance. If you flip it over defensively for the Saints, your top 5 players defensively, Ugo Amadi, who's going to make the team, Danny Stutzman, who I like a lot, even though he only had 3 tackles, but it felt like Stutzman, who wears 47, was everywhere. He was always around the ball. Jonas Sanker, safety draft pick, who you're hoping might be a guy that can become a cornerstone player for you. Chris Rumph was 4th, who, by the way, Chris Rumph, who played for Brandon Staley with the Chargers, is going to win a job on this roster, and that's going to be the end for Isaiah Foskey. And then Jonah Williams was 5th. Jalen Ford, Brian Brzee, Isaiah Stallbird, who I thought was awesome, was 8th. By contrast, remember I just told you Taliesin Fuanga was your highest rated offensive player with a 74? Ugo Amadi had an 82.8. Stutzman was at a 79.2. Sanker 78.2. Rump 76.2. Jalen Ford 74. Brian Brzee 73.8. Stallbird 73.4. Yadam 73.2. You see my point? You had 9 dudes on defense that were all ranked higher than your highest rated dude on offense. I love that. What it tells you is, it tells me anyway, that defense played pretty well and you have some depth there. And a lot of those are young names that I'm excited about because I've told you, I'm not expecting anything from this team in a win-loss record. What I want to see is if they drafted well enough to have gotten cornerstone starting players that they can build this roster around as the cap resets and they have young starters on rookie contracts. That's how you get out of this mess. But it starts with drafting well, like in 2006, like in 2017. Well, this is a pretty good start. The bottom, Nephi Sewell was your lowest, followed by Isaiah Foskey, who played 44 snaps and did not record a statistic. Second round pick. You might as well just use that second round pick on a tract of land in Bunkie. You got nothing for it. Foskey stinks. He's not going to make the team. Fadil Diggs was next, and that's disappointing because I think he's been pretty good. Was super highly regarded at A&M, went to Syracuse, really athletic edge guy. You hope the light comes on because I think he can be really good. Then Jaden Price, Nathan Shepard, Dallas Beanham, Elliot Davidson. Those two, Beanham and Davidson, are the ones that gave up the 49-yarder that DJU spun late in the game. But all that to say, the guys at the top defensively are guys that you're probably going to count on. Even someone like Kool-Aid McKinstry graded out as 65. Vernon Broughton graded out as 64. Quincy Riley is 63. I can live with that. I think it was a good debut for a lot of these defenders. Offensively, felt like a mess. Defensively, kind of how it played out a little bit there on Sunday. I think the PFF grades are pretty reflective of that. Saints will stay out in LA this week. They will they'll practice with the Rams on Thursday, joint practice on Thursday. They'll fly home on Friday, walk through Saturday, and they'll play Jacksonville in the Dome on Sunday. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.